Don't be so quick to kill.
What's wrong with killing?
I don't know what mountain you came down from, but you're in the city now. There are rules.
Rules? Is running around this city with a pack of idiots one of the rules?
I'm only using them.
Your rules stink like this city. What's the point of living if it means throwing away your pride?
You got a big mouth for someone half dead.
In the last episode, we looked at the Glasswalkers, a tribe that embraces humanity arguably at the expense of being Garou. Now, we're taking a look at the Red Talons. The Red Talons reject everything human, even hominid werewolves. The tribe is entirely wolf-born, and no tribe in the Garou nation is closer to nature than the Red Talons. As I said in the Glasswalkers episode, the werewolf in many ways is a metaphor for the brutality and savagery of nature, and no tribe embodies that more than the Red Talons. When the world began, there was only ocean, forest, and plains. There were no animals. Gaia called up the rocks, plants, and winds, and the triad found a home in each. The wild went into the plants, the weaver went into the rocks, and the worm went into the winds. But the wild, being the spirit of chaos, made the plants grow out of control. Moss covered rocks, spores rode the winds, soon plants were everywhere. Gaia then warned the wild if it did not control the plants, she would bring something that would. The wild ignored her. So Gaia brought the first animals to feast on the plants. This did not please the weaver and worm, for where there were plants, now there were animals. What's more, the animals bred out of control. Once again, Gaia asked the wild to get them under control. Once again, the wild ignored her. So Gaia created the first predators, but before she sent them out, she granted them a gift from both the weaver and the worm. From the weaver, they learned patience, to lie in wait for the right moment to hunt. From the worm, they learned cunning, to think ahead to make them more effective hunters. For a time, predators were able to bring back balance to the world. So the question is, where does it all go wrong?
It turns out it's man.
Originally, humanity had been prey, but the worm decided it would sow discord by teaching them the relationship between predator and prey. To do this, the worm took the form of a serpent and gave humanity intelligence. It transformed humans from prey into predators. While cunning, humans lacked the weaver's gift of patience. They would often take more than they needed, and bred all the time. Humans eventually managed to rise above the other predators, except the wolves. For the most part, wolves stayed away from humans and only attacked when they came too close to their territory. But one curious wolf wandered close to humans and observed them. She saw how they had advanced. She also saw burial mounds arranged in the shape of a serpent. Unfortunately, she was discovered by humans, hunted, killed, and then skinned by them. In response, Gaia gathered the world's predators. She gave them tasks. Bats and birds would be her eyes and ears. Lizards would keep knowledge, and wolves would be her defenders. But the worm noted humans were predators and needed a task, but Gaia had none for them. So the worm suggested the other predators be allowed to take the form of humans and breed with them.
Tammy!
Gaia agreed and the Pharaoh were born. While this created mighty creatures, it also made predators with the minds of humans, and with that the worm knew the balance would be lost. Of all the tribes, the Talons were the biggest supporters of the Impergium because it meant restoring the balance. The Talons also had no stake in protecting any human tribes because they would only breed with wolves. One Talon named Look Sideways then had a dream of vast human cities where humans were so numerous because they kept breeding out of control. When he revealed his vision to his packmates, the Talons began attacking humans more aggressively. Hominid tribes would later call for a vote to end the Impergium, which the Talons vehemently disagreed with. The Talons asked how the humans would be controlled when the Impergium ended, but the ruling Silver Fang refused to acknowledge them unless they gave their tribe's name. At this time, the Talons didn't have a name because they had no use for it. But the Silver Fang forced their hand. If they would not give their tribe's name, they would not be given a vote. A Talon Arun named Fell's Trees approached the Silver Fang and slashed him across the chest with his claws. While the Fang laid on the ground in pain, Fell's Trees declared that the mark he left the Fang with would be his tribe's name, Red Talons. Ultimately, the Talons would be outvoted and the Impergium would end. The Talons would cease killing humans, but always kept asking, how do we keep humans under control? They still haven't found an answer. During the War of Rage, the Talons were reluctant participants. The Silverfangs declared that they would go to war against the other Pharaoh, and the Talons obeyed because they respected the Fangs as alphas. As human civilization began to spread and the lands became more and more urbanized, it began to push the wolves and Talons further into a shrinking wild. During the medieval era, the Talons began the Night Fear. It was a sort of soft Impergium. Instead of killing humans, they would just wound them if they wandered too close into their territory. The idea was they would frighten them and they would think the woods were haunted. And for a time, it worked. But priests and hunters would later come into the woods and killed werewolves, putting an end to the Night Fear. Long before the Europeans arrived in the New World, the Talons had already arrived via moon bridges. They encountered the native tribes, and while initially distrustful of them for breeding with humans, they came to realize they respected the land as they did. But when the European tribes did arrive, the Storm War began. Garou fought with Garou, and the Umbra exploded into a raging storm. The Talons stayed out of it as best they could, while the Garou, the Werebears, died defeating the storm. The Talons keep vigil over the Garou cairns to this day, waiting for one of them to return. As the Storm War continued, humans would scar the land with iron nails and scorch the sky with smoke. Vampires began to arrive in large numbers in America, and would only get worse as the Storm War gave way to the War of Tears. In Australia, the Talons discovered the bunyip, but to the Talons they were not true Garou. Instead of breeding with wolves, the bunyip bred with dingoes. The Talons slaughtered the bunyip completely and let loose howls of victory into the nights. But the worm laughed. A Garou tribe was wiped out of existence. The nights continued. Humans grew more clever. They began killing each other on scales unimaginable in wars that devastated the land. Their cities grew even larger. Wolves began to die out more. The Talons got the hint. They could not win, and they would likely die out. Even when the humans would set forests aside as parks or reserves, the Talons took this as evidence of the humans' victory. If humans could pick and choose what land they would turn into cities and what land they would leave alone, then they had no hope of winning. But then something changed. Out in Russia, Talons residing there bore witness to a great red star burning in the night sky. Some tribes called it the Eye of the Worm. The Talons knew what it meant. The apocalypse was now nigh, and it was time for them to stand their ground, perform their rites, and find a way to destroy it. And after the star is destroyed, the Talons will bring back the Impergium, and they will kill every last human. There is no tribe more devoted to the wild than the Red Talons. They have shunned everything and anything made by humanity. The Talons exclusively remain in their ancestral lands in the wilderness. Although with the land being developed, this means that the Talons are the tribe that has suffered the most losses, not just in territory but also in numbers. Talon kinfolk have been hunted to near extinction in some areas such as in Europe and North America, and it's no secret that the Talons carry a grudge against the human race, and if they could get their way, they'd bring back the Impergium and wipe out all humans. In fact, there are rumors that some Talons violate the litany and devour humans they kill. This level of zealotry means that they don't play nice with the other tribes so much as tolerate them by varying degrees. Another thing to note about the Red Talons is that they eschew human language. While they are very proficient in the Garou tongue, they tend to communicate in the language of wolves. Body language, scents, growls, barks, and howls are what they understand best.
In fact, the Red Talons don't really understand the subtleties and intricacies of human speech. A Haman trying to establish a dialogue with a Talon falls somewhere between extremely difficult and a fool's errand. They don't get humor, they don't understand social cues, they take everything literally, and oh my god, I just realized the Red Talons are all autistic.
His people are completely literal. Metaphors are gonna go over his head.
Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it.
Huh, funny how that works. I was almost certain the autists would be in the Glasswalkers.
The tribe is more or less organized like a wolf pack would be, with the strongest and most able leading the pack as the alpha. Being the most devoted to the wild, the Talons have also preserved ancient rites not seen among Garou since the ancient times. The Talon totem is Griffin, a wild spirit that despises humanity. Griffin aids all spirit whose living kin are threatened by humans. He also demands that any Talons that follow him never associate with humans ever. There are no Homid in the Red Talons. They view Homids as deficient as they rely too much on that Weaver creation logic, not enough instinct in the Homid to be a real wolf. Menace can be found in the Talons, but they are rare and are more likely to be passed off to another tribe. The breed that dominates the tribe is Lupus. To them, Lupus are what Garou should be, predators ruled by instinct. The tribe's territory is the wild, doesn't matter where. As long as there are no humans, the Talons will settle anywhere. Things like countries or nations hold no more meaning for them than time does. Now, given that Talons are exclusively wolf-born, their kinfolk are wolves. The only discrimination in this tribe is towards humans. In other words, no, the Red Talons aren't racist, they're more speciesist. If any tribe is going to be difficult to play as, it's the Red Talons. Most of the tribes have connections with human culture, and so there's an easy frame of reference to work with. The Fianna, they're Celtic. The Get of Fenris, they're Nordic. The Glasswalkers, they're urban. The Children of Gaia, they're hippies. The Black Furies, they're feminist. But Red Talons don't have any such frame, at least not one that a human mind can easily understand. Playing as a Red Talon requires you to place yourself in a different mindset. In other words, you need to think like a wolf to play a proper Talon. You're not a werewolf that can reason, at least not in the way a human would. Everything gets filtered through a wolf's eyes, through instinct. A Red Talon isn't one for asking questions or philosophizing. A Red Talon acts, and if humans get killed, it helps the wild. So with that being said, if I was going to play a Red Talon, I'd like to play as one that's more curious about humans. Is he going to feel more comfortable in the wilderness? Well, of course he should. But I also want to tone down the human hate. And as far as fictional characters for inspiration, we'll start with an anime that is a personal favorite of mine, Wolf's Rain. The four main characters are wolves, and I'm not kidding when I say that the writers and animators actually did their homework and studied how wolves behave. The wolves actually think and act like wolves. They don't come off as anthropomorphized. They're pretty realistic, even by anime standards. I'm also going to recommend two novels by Jack London. The first is Call of the Wild. This is the story of a husky dog that comes to embrace his more feral side, and at the end of the book ends up leading his own wolf pack. This can give you a roadmap for a Talon that might have grown up in captivity and learns how to live like a proper wolf after finding his way into the wild. The second is White Fang. It's more or less the same story as Call of the Wild, but instead of a domesticated dog becoming wild, it's a wild wolf dog becoming domesticated. But what will help is how this book is told primarily from the dog's point of view, so you can kind of get the mindset of how a wolf might think. My final recommendation is going to be Princess Mononoke. The wolves in this movie behave like Red Talons with how aggressive they are in attacking humans and preserving nature. And there's actually a lot of material in this film that's applicable to Werewolf the Apocalypse, which I plan to cover in a future video. No tribe has suffered more loss than the Red Talons. Their territory is gone, their kinfolk are dying out, and the Hamid tribes don't seem to care. The Red Talons remember what the world used to be like. It was in balance, and humans ruined everything. The Hamid tribes talk about beating the worm back and restoring nature, but they don't want to kill humans to do it. The Hamid tribes are nothing but talk with no action. The problem isn't going to go away until the humans are gone. The Red Talons are the only tribe that cuts through all the bullshit and going right after the source of the problem. The Hamids don't want to listen to them, then so be it. They're degenerates who think they can have it both ways. This world was made for predators, and there's no predator mightier or more pure than the wolf.